In today's video, I'm going to take apart this very loose and organic arrangement that has been designed in wire netting, and I'm going to place it in floral foam, just like the modern style of arrangements that are currently being used on top of plinths or pedestals for modern style weddings. Keep watching if you want to see how I can recreate a completely different design. I've taken all of the flowers out of that previous arrangement, and I'm now just left with the chicken wire and the base, and I'm going to replace that with some floral foam. So let's get rid of that to start with. Now, when arranging in floral foam, there's a possibility that I'm going to need to add extra flowers, but I've basically collected by my side here all of the fresh flowers that I took out with the arrangement. Now, there's a trend at the moment for flower arrangements for weddings where there is no container and it looks like they're sitting flat onto a plinth. Well, they are sitting flat on a plinth, and we're seeing them outside churches, either side of top tables. I think it's a trend that's come from America, but it's a style of arranging that doesn't have a great deal of foliage in it unless you're using those tropical flowers like strelitzias, anthuriums, birds of paradise, that type of thing. If you're using this country style of flowers, then there is very little foliage used. And often when you're using less foliage, you have to use more flowers to be able to cover your floral foam. So my first tip for this style of arranging is to minimalise the amount of floral foam that you're going to use, because the bigger the piece of foam, the more flowers you're going to need, and the design might lose the style, it might lose the shape of the style that we're trying to create. Now, if you've been arranging for a long time, you're going to recognise this container here. This is what we affectionately call a top hat. Although I did pause because it's square, and our top hat square? No, I don't think so. But this is a base that is used quite a lot in a pedestal stand. So if you've got a square pedestal stand, that sits in quite nicely on top. This wouldn't be my first choice of container for this arrangement because it's got quite a lot of depth in it. The ideal container for this design is something completely flat that is just going to hold the foam and stop the water spilling over the edge. It's not like an arrangement where we've had nice urns and nice ceramic containers and something attractive to look at. There's no visible base at all. And what I find is really good to use is either a dinner plate, and you quite often get black or white square dinner plates in the lower end budget shops, and they work fantastically well for this. I didn't have one to show you, but it's this type of style, but square rather than rectangle. And this, incidentally, is a sandwich or a serving platter. This was only £1.50. I'll probably talk about this in another video, but that's great for meadow styles, parallel arrangements, and it's quite inconspicuous because obviously there's nothing vulgar to look at. So a square version of one of those is ideal for this type of arrangement. It doesn't work quite so well with a long one. So square or circular is the name of the game. So 2 tips: flat container, the smallest amount of foam that you can use, and the design is front facing. It can be done to be viewed from both sides, but this is going to be a front facing design. And I'm going to start by creating some height. And the tallest flower I had in that previous arrangement was the lovely my mind has gone completely blank, but I do have a cold, so I'm going to blame the cold. What is that called? It's poisonous. It's a foxglove. Oh, we got there in the end. So I'm not going to do that very traditional style of place it smack bang in the middle of my floral foam. I'm going to put it off to one side, and I'm going to follow the curve. So rather than this curve pointing you over there, I'm going to angle it this way so the curve is more pointing to the ceiling. And what that is going to do is it's going to open up some space here in the arrangement, and it's going to stop me creating a triangle, because if we put it in the middle, we're instinctively going to get that triangular shape. And I've placed it about 2/3 of the way back in the foam, and because the little penny cress is cut short. I'm going to go in with that next because that's going to help cover my foam. And you can use the penny cress in two different ways. It curves naturally, and in a traditional arrangement we would probably face it down. But you could, if you wanted to, bring it upwards so we get a completely different style with it. And I don't want to cut too much off the bottom of these because I want to I want to be able to use them at the same length so you can really see the difference in the two different styles. So what I'm doing now is I'm grouping it together rather than more randomly spreading it out in the arrangement. Although, if you've watched some of the videos, you might realise that random isn't as random as we think it is. So I'm going to come in on the opposite side so that the colour is slightly balanced, but we've got a bigger, more dominant part on this side here. And then before I go on any further, I'm going to use these shorter pieces that we used in that previous arrangement really, really close to the foam. Because I don't have greenery, so I don't have anything to cover that foam. And starting doing this now, right at the very beginning, is going to be much better than doing it at the end. Now this one was in the arrangement to give me some height. And all I did then was cut off a few of the side shoots because I know that I'm going to be really desperate to cover this floral foam. And the easiest way to do this would be to use a big hydrangea. But I haven't got any hydrangeas today, and if your bride didn't want hydrangeas, then this would be a nice alternative. And even though we're going to see the design mainly from the front, because it's a front-facing arrangement, I'm going to cover, whoop, I snapped that then, I'm going to cover the back of the foam as well, because the vicar might see the back or the photographer, and there's nothing worse than a photographer taking a photo from the back of the church and the florist hasn't covered her foam, and you can see it all in the wedding photos. You see it all the time. So those shorter little bits I've cut down low, and I've just realised that I haven't left myself any tall pieces apart from this one here, so never mind. Oh, I've got a spare one in the bucket behind. Right, I also had a couple of short pieces of the Orlaya, so that can get placed in on the bottom as well, just to really help cover the foam at the bottom. Now the difficulty I have in this style, I love it, but you're using a lot of flowers at the base to cover your foam. So I'm not really sure where this trend came from or where it started, but it seems to be everywhere at the moment. Right, so that is the front, but it's just as nice from the back if anybody's looking at it from the back. You could, if you wanted to, cut down short the alliums to cover the foam as well. You could use moss, but I don't think moss is really in keeping with the more modern style. Moss for me is quite organic and quite natural. And then what I'm going to do, almost in the opposite corner, is I'm going to do this cluster of alliums, and I'm just sort of seeing which one is the taller. Now that is the taller one. What I don't want to do is put it in the middle, and because I can't get enough height difference between them, this is going to have to come more over here, and it's going to have to go shorter because I need to get that stepped effect between them. I don't want to have them so that they're all on the same level. So we're going to bring this right out to the side, and we've got that 3/5/8 grouping between this set of placements here. And then before I overfill, I'm going to add in the 2 white peonies. Now if you watched the previous video when I did the design as a more organic style, I mentioned that the peonies aren't as fresh as they normally are when I do videos, because I've been off with a sore throat and I haven't been able to film. So they're a little bit more open than maybe I would like them to have been, but they're going to work just as well. So if we think of this as an arrangement, we've got this really clear gap in the middle. There's no centre line like a traditional flower arrangement. And you're looking at the front at the moment. I had to pause then to think about it. You're looking at the back. You're looking at the front. I'm looking at the back. And then I have these lovely Snapdragons. So I'm going to group these together again in a separate group where the colour is blocked. The flower colour and that texture is really exaggerated because they're grouped together. and we're looking to have the turn of the stem, or the turn at the top of the stem, facing upwards, not pointing away from the arrangement. This one is actually quite tall. So I'm going to place this in nice and high. And I think it's optional at this stage whether you're going to leave the greenery on or not. The greenery for me is lovely and fresh in this arrangement, so I'm going to leave it on. And before I go any further, I'm going to fill in this bit here and this bit here, because I can clearly see the floral foam, and it's going to be really hard for me to hide that as I go along. And the best flower for that, I mean, it is my favourite flower. When I'm a bit disappointed, I've got to cut it short, but I'm going to get some short pieces in now. You could use gyp. You'll see that in a lot of this sort of style, and you will see very large open roses used at the base as well. And that breaks my heart when there's a beautiful rose really flat down at the bottom. So I think the main structure is in there. Don't stress too much if you think there's a big hole in the middle, because it's meant to be. And now the spray rose that I had, or the garden rose that I had, is going to work really nicely in this gap here. And I've got to feed it through the centre of those flowers that I've used to base the bottom. I find it very hard to put these flowers in first and then fit all your flowers in the middle. But if that style suits you, you can do the longer flowers first and then fill in the gap after. I find that really difficult to do. And I am removing the greenery from this one, which is different to the first arrangement I did, which was meant to be more organic and more natural. And these are going to really shoot out over the side. It's like all the flowers have exploded out of the middle. It's less contained. We're not looking for an outline shape, and we're not looking to create anything that's triangular, like a pedestal. I'm not particularly liking this group here, because from the front it looks like it's too much in the middle of the arrangement. So I'm almost going to move it and echo what I have with that foxglove over there, and that the gap in the middle is more clearer. So one of the important factors with this style of arranging, it's similar to form linear, is that you don't fill that middle part. So I'm much more pleased with that now. That works much better for me. And then this bigger piece of the Sweet William can just come out to one side, and I'm really clearly leaving that empty in the middle. And now I'm going to add the more whimsical, softer flower. So the structure is in, that base structure is in, but by adding those more whimsical, free-flowing flowers, we're going to change the dynamic slightly. It's going to go from quite structured to a little bit more playful. But I'm going to use all the material grouped together to create some lovely groupings and clusters of flowers. But we're aiming, let's just get all that one type of flower together in my hand. So this one is Hesperus. This is going to be the next material that I'm going to place in, and I'm going to try and see if I can match the colours. So there are 3 different colours really with the Hesperus: a darker purple, a slightly mid purple. In fact, we got 4, a white and a lilac-y shade. And this is now going to change the arrangement and make it look really pretty, really soft and sort of quite delicate. The Hesperus has been out of water for maybe 10 or 15 minutes while I've been preparing to refilm. So it has flopped a little bit, but it will perk up once it's back in the foam. So it's starting to slightly lose those more dominant groups that we had in the beginning, but we've still got that more modern look because the material is grouped together. And I've pretty much covered the floral foam. There's a little bit in the middle, which you probably can't see on the camera, but I need a bit of space at the top just to keep adding some more flowers. It's important with this style of arranging that you position your flowers at different angles. Tilt some forward, some to the side, some to the back. And don't have it mirrored on both sides. Otherwise you'll end up with a design that doesn't quite gel and doesn't quite work. So right at the back now, we're going to have a cluster of the Nigella. Again, I'm going to try and work with the same colour in the same group. So we've got this really simple shade of white all clustered together. And if I didn't mention in the previous video, don't forget that if you save the seed heads from these flowers, you'll be able to grow your own next year. They're quite simple to grow, although I'm very good at growing seeds. I can get seeds to grow really well, but then I seem to lose them between germination and planting them in the garden. But you know, I do try every year. So this is the back of the arrangement. Remember, by angling material back, you add in actual weight because we don't want it to tip off that pedestal base. And it also gives that design that three-dimensional look. So don't face everything forward, angle everything in different positions. Now I can normally tell if a video is going well because if I look in the analytics, people are still watching at the halfway mark. If this is a design that you really don't like and you don't understand, let me know why and let me know what you don't like about it. Is it because it looks quite messy and untidy? Especially if you've been arranging really traditionally, then you might not understand this concept. And then we're left with the Orlaya. I think I'm going to have to add in some extra flowers because we've got quite a gap in the centre, but you can just compare the two designs and see how they've worked. So I mentioned in the beginning two important factors, and that's to have a flat container and a small amount of foam. The other one would be to remove all the foliage on the flowers so you get that nice clean and simple lines. I have left them on with the Snapdragon because I think the Snapdragon looks a little bit naked when it doesn't have any greenery. The fourth factor that is important is you don't have a centre line, you don't arrange flowers in the middle, and your materials should be grouped together for impact. You can mix the groupings together, which is what I've done here with your Orlaya and the rose, and there should be a heavy weighted amount of flowers at the base, whether it's carnations grouped together, it can be chrysanthemums, it can be a hydrangea, or it can be a large open rose if your budget allows. Now I was thinking that I was going to add some extra flowers to the middle, but I think if I do that I'm going to make it too traditional. And because it's asymmetrical and the height is slightly taller on this side, I'm just going to add in another of the Snapdragon over here. It's quite a dominant colour and I don't have any of it over this side, but I'm only going to add one piece in. So we've got a linking colour, but we don't have a definite repetition. Now if you haven't watched this previous video, you might not realise that all of the flowers that I've got here in the arrangement are locally grown. They've all come from my local flower farm, and they are an exceptionally good quality. I was hoping to film this about 2 days ago and my throat has been really sore, so I haven't been able to film. Just going to remove that and put it a little bit higher. So apart from the peonies, and it is really warm and they've been stuck in the studio for about 3 days with not a great deal of ventilation, but all the flowers are such a good quality. They are amazing to work with, and I love this time of the year when I can order a bucket of flowers and I can arrive at work not knowing what I've been supplied with, and then I can be as creative as I want. Now I've just got a couple of grasses to put in. I'm just going to lift that up because I think you might be losing the bottom part of the arrangement. I'll give you a better picture. So in a perfect world, when this is displayed, you can't see the container at all. So I probably would have benefited from having a couple of bigger flowers right at the base, maybe a couple more of the peonies to cover the bottom. But I wanted you to be able to compare the two different styles. I'm going to finish off with these really lovely little pieces of grass. And what we need to be careful of with this style of arranging is that we don't point everything out towards the edge. Oh, I'm having difficulty getting this one in. We don't point everything out like sticks pointing away. They need to curve back really elegantly back towards the arrangement. This one is pointing in the opposite direction, but this brings your eye backwards into the arrangement rather than send you over to something of less importance. So I've just got 3 of these lovely little quaking grasses to place in. There's an obvious gap in the middle, which you might not like as a traditional arranger. You might be thinking, Sharon, you've got a great big hole there in the middle, but this is the style, and it can be quite tricky to arrange in this style and not put a flower in the middle. So I've got one piece of the Sweet William left, which is just going to come right towards the middle there, and it'll help draw your eye in. I don't like that, it's too tall. I don't know whether you'll see it in the camera. It's this one here when we look from overhead. I want to cut it lower. You need that flat plane in the middle and then everything elevated up around it. So I love this style. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I really do like it. So that's a very loose and organic, quite a trending style that's very fashionable at the moment. I hope you've liked it. My fifth key point for this arrangement is to not pick flowers that are sprays. Go for individual flowers, a single flower on a single stem. It's okay to have a really statement flower like the Orlaya, but things like small-headed spray carnations, lisianthus don't work particularly well. Things like freesias really don't work at all because they get lost. Go for a bigger flower head and something that makes more of a statement, and then you get this nice dramatic effect. So I haven't followed the traditional 1/3, 2/3 rule for this arrangement. I've looked at using the 3/5/8 rule, which I've introduced to you in several different videos. If you've got any questions, just put them in the comment box. Don't forget to subscribe because that's really important. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.